There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. You know, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. I think about this issue through the lens of my baby nieces, who are 1.5 and 3 years old. And when I look at those babies and I think about what the world will be like in 20 years if we don't act, I'm really afraid. And as it relates to those Republicans in Congress, where I've now been for 2.5 years, every one of those members need to look at the babies, the grandbabies in their life, and then look in the mirror and ask themselves, why have they failed to act?
And in 2019, you said, quote, there is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the highly anticipated Kamala Harris interview for people who like to critically think, okay? If you're one of these people who are like, you know, I actually want to know what the person I'm voting for or I'm considering voting for actually thinks, yes, this was the interview for you, okay? However, for a vast majority of people on the left, they really didn't care to hear Kamala Harris basically embarrass herself doing this interview, because that's exactly what happened, okay? This interview was an absolute train wreck, and it really shows you why Kamala Harris and her team were so afraid of her doing these types of interviews in the first place, because they do not have any answers for the questions that the American people have for them surrounding the lies, the flip-flopping, the gaslighting, the terrible record. And that's basically the summary of this interview. And it's not like Dana Bash really did a good job of pressing Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, her emotional support person, during this interview. So I want to break down some portions of the interview. This video is mainly going to be my opinion on it, my reaction, okay? Maybe another video I will talk about everybody else's reaction, the mainstream liberal media reaction to it. But for right now, this is just my reaction to it because I watched it last night. And yeah, it was a disaster. So let's start with Tim Walz. Tim Walz was confronted on his claims of stolen valor. Okay, when I say confronted, I mean Dana Bash kindly and very nicely asked him about it in a way that she would never do for a Republican. I mean, this woman was smiling and cackling throughout the whole interview, letting them know, hey, this is very friendly, okay? I'm going to be soft as, you know, Charmin Ultra with you, okay? Which she was throughout the whole interview. But yeah, she asked this question to Tim Walz, and Tim Walz didn't really have an answer for why he lied about his military service.
The country is just starting to get to know you. I want to ask you a question about how you've described your service in the National Guard. You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
Well, first of all, I'm incredibly proud. I've done 24 years of wearing the uniform of this country. Equally proud of my service in a public school classroom, whether it's Congress or the governor. My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeves, and I speak especially passionately about our children being shot in schools and around guns. So I think people know me. They know who I am. They know where my heart is. And again, my record has been out there for over 40 years to speak for itself. And
the idea that you said that you were in war, yeah. Did you misspeak as the campaign has said?
Yeah, I said we were talking about, in this case, this was after a school shooting, the ideas of carrying these weapons of war. And my wife, the English teacher, told me my grammar is not always correct. But again, if it's not this, it's an attack on my children for showing love for me, or it's an attack on my dog. I'm not going to do that. And the one thing I'll never do is I'll never demean another member's service in any way. I never have, and I never will.
One other question, because again, this is all new. Yeah. This was not, however many days ago, this was not on either of your bingo cards, especially yours. You had to clarify that you had said that you and your wife used IVF, but it turned out you used a different kind of fertility in order to have children. And then when you ran for Congress in 2006, your campaign repeatedly made false statements about a 1995 arrest for drunk and reckless driving. What do you say to voters who aren't sure whether they can take you at your word?
Well, I've been very public. I think they can see my students come out, former folks I've served with, and they vouch for me. I certainly own my mistakes when I make them. The one thing I'll tell you is I wished in this country wouldn't have to do this. I spoke about our infertility issues because it's hell, and families know this. And I spoke about the treatments that were available to us that had those beautiful children there. That's quite a contrast in folks that are trying to take those rights away from us. And so I think people know who I am. They know that record. They've seen that. I've taught thousands of students. I've been out there. And I won't apologize for speaking passionately, whether it's guns in schools or protecting of reproductive rights. The contrast could not be clearer between what we're running against. The Vice President's position on this has been clear. And I think most Americans get it if you've been through that. I don't think they're cutting hairs on IVF or IUI. I think what they're cutting hairs on is an abortion ban and the ability to be able to deny families the chance to have a beautiful child.
Wow, absolutely incredible, right? Incredible way of just not answering the question at all, okay? This guy basically says that, hey, yeah, I lied about my military service because my grammar was off, right? My grammar was off. My grammar's not all that good, okay? But you got to understand, I was talking about weapons of war in schools, except there are no weapons of war being used in school shootings. Now, if Dana Bash was actually a good journalist, okay, instead of a propagandist, because that's what she did in this interview, right? I'm gonna tell you, the biggest loser of this interview was Dana Bash, okay, because she just showed the world like, yeah, you're a propagandist. You are soft, okay, because that's what this interview was. She should have followed up and said, listen, first and foremost, there are no weapons of war in school, okay? And it's not about school shootings. That's not what this is about. This is about the fact that you just happen to give false statements about your military service that has upset the veterans community, and they want to know, why is it that it just so happens that you continue to give these statements that are false in relation to your military service? Because you're saying that your grammar was off, right? But was your grammar off when you also told people that you retired at a rank that you actually didn't retire at? Right? Was that a grammar problem too? Okay. What is a grammar problem when you lied about IVF and your family using that? Was it a grammar problem when you lied about your DUI arrest? I'm just saying, like, what is this? Okay. I mean, zero pushback whatsoever from Dana Bash. There was also zero pushback when Tim Walz falsely claimed that Republicans want a federal abortion ban, when Trump has already come out and said, no, we're not doing that. Okay, he said that, but she didn't push back. She didn't correct him the same way that she would have corrected him had a Republican made a statement about Kamala's policies that the mainstream liberal media feels like, oh, well, that's misleading or that's wrong about where she stands, even though nobody really knows where she stands, because I guess she hasn't really done any interviews. They'll come out here and they'll try to play defense for Kamala Harris and to correct the Republican in ways that they would never do for Democrats. They just allow Democrats to falsely state what Republicans want to do all day long, and there will never be that last second interjection at the end of the answer to correct that individual, the same way that they like to do with Republicans. Okay, just look at Dana Bash's interview with J.D. Vance versus this interview that she did with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
And I don't want to hear from a campaign spokesperson of Kamala Harris. I want to hear Kamala Harris herself address what I just said.
You know, I've seen a lot of statements from veterans, including those you serve with, saying it's just untoward to be criticizing somebody who served for 24 years.
Dana, I'm not interested in the ad hominem. I've heard from a lot of veterans groups who criticize Tim Walz. The question is, he said he served in war, and he didn't. That is a dishonesty. I couldn't care less what one or the other person says about it. I care about what the truth is. The truth is that Tim Walz didn't tell the truth, and importantly, Dana, this is about Kamala Harris's judgment. And I think that when you ask, why has Kamala Harris allowed the border to be wide open? Why has Kamala Harris supported policies that have promoted the increase in inflation? I think it goes to the heart of her judgment, and I think that that's what we should be talking about.
One last question. Donald Trump didn't serve in the military. He received a medical draft deferment for bone spurs to avoid serving in the Vietnam War, reportedly as a favor to his father. Do you find that shameful, too?
I think that Donald Trump didn't serve in the military, but he didn't lie about it, Dana. I've known Donald Trump for a long time. He really honors our veterans. He honors me for my service. Donald Trump didn't lie about serving in the military. He didn't say that he went to Vietnam when he didn't. This is the problem. I don't criticize anybody, whether they served our country or not. I think it's honorable to serve, but obviously a lot of people have reasons for not serving. I criticize somebody for embellishing their record, for lying, saying, I went to war. Dana, do you think that it's a problem that he said, I went to war, but he didn't actually? That seems to be a problem to me.
Well, they've corrected that. Let's move on to...
They've corrected it by admitting that he lied.
Let's move on to another important issue to voters.
Right? The difference is night and day, okay? They're very adversarial with Republicans. They're very friendly with Democrats, right? She's soft, she's welcoming, she's smiling, which is basically what she did throughout the whole interview. In fact, I'm more frustrated with Dana Bash than I am with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz because they look weak, okay? They look weak. If I was Putin, okay, and I was watching that interview, boy, I would be salivating. I'd be like, wow, I hope they win, okay? I hope they win because they're going to get taken advantage of. They are going to get taken advantage of. And I'm saying Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. So you can't say I'm saying something sexist, right? No, they are going to get eaten alive, right? So with that being said, that brings me to the next part of the interview that I want to talk about. The main part of the interview that I think a lot of people will talk about, which are Kamala Harris's flip-flops on policy, right? She was confronted on this by Dana Bash, okay? Specifically when it comes to her position on fracking, which, by the way, I told you guys before that CNN was leaking questions to Kamala Harris and her team because John Berman just was basically telling Kamala Harris's campaign advisor that, hey, yeah, we're going to ask you about fracking, okay? You might want to have a better answer than the answer that you have right now because, yeah, we're going to ask you about that. And lo and behold, she was asked about that, and she just absolutely bombed this answer. Take a look.
I want to get some clarity on where you stand on some key policy issues. Energy is a big one. When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, there is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, sure, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania. Sure. Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, at a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed. I believe it is very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion over the next 10 years, investing in a clean energy economy. What we've already done, creating over 300,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as vice president, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact, Dana, I cast the tie-breaking vote that actually increased leases for fracking as vice president. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
And was there some policy or scientific data that you saw that you said, oh, okay, I get it now?
What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Okay.
Yeah, so notice how Kamala Harris is doing so bad when it comes to answering this question. She's so incoherent that Dana Bash is trying to feed her potential answers to make her answer make sense, okay? Because Kamala Harris is saying things that logically do not make sense. Like, for example, okay, in 2019, she says, hey, I want to ban fracking on day one, okay? And then she says, well, I don't want to ban fracking anymore, but my values have not changed, right? When pressed on her changing her position on fracking, okay, now all of a sudden she doesn't want to ban fracking, but she says her values haven't changed. Now, she claims that she changed her position in 2020 when she was vice president. However, that is a lie. She never actually definitively came out here and changed her position. She just stated, okay, during the vice presidential debate that Joe Biden would not ban fracking. She did not say that Joe Biden and I would not ban fracking. She said that Joe Biden would not ban fracking. Take a look.
Will you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking your first day in office, adding the United States to the list of countries who have banned this devastating practice?
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yeah, Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that. I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking.
Yeah, so clearly, in 2020, Kamala Harris did not come out and say that, hey, I don't want to ban fracking anymore, right? She didn't say that was her personal belief. She said that, hey, that's something that Joe Biden doesn't want to do, okay? So there's a difference. But what Kamala Harris is trying to do here is that she's trying to thread the needle, right? Because she's trying to say, just in a way that's not very eloquent because she really sucks at this, she's trying to say that, well, my values haven't changed because I still believe in the Green New Deal, right? Which she provides evidence for that by saying that, well, I supported the Inflation Reduction Act, which is an admission that the Inflation Reduction Act was not about reducing inflation. It was a Trojan horse for the Green New Deal, right? That is what the Inflation Reduction Act was, okay? So Democrats basically lied in the title of the legislation in regards to what the legislation was about. It was really about the Green New Deal and more government spending on green projects rather than reducing inflation, which is why it has been a disaster when it comes to reducing inflation. It actually has made inflation worse due to the spending. But she basically is trying to say that, yes, we can hit our climate goals. We can still accomplish the agenda of the Green New Deal, okay, while at the same time having fracking. Now, in order for her to justify that change, right, there needs to be some type of scientific data, okay, or some reference point that she needs to use in order to back up, okay, well, why do you feel that way now, even though you didn't feel that way back then, which is something that Data Bash noted because she was basically trying to help Kamala out by saying, hey, did you read some scientific paper, right? Did you, do some research or something like that? Like, what did you do, right, in order to come to this conclusion, right, to change your position, right? But again, Kamala Harris is so dumb, okay? She's doing this for political reasons, not because she actually looked into it and had a, real change of heart, which she claims she didn't, right? She claims her values didn't change, which is why a lot of this is so confusing. But again, she couldn't even provide any evidence or data to back up the reason why she changed her position on this, while also claiming that, again, her values have not changed, okay? Again, it just, it's so incoherent, like it doesn't make sense, okay? It's so bad that even Data Bash, even the interviewer is trying to give her a layup, trying to help her make her answer make sense, right? Again, this is kindergarten, man. They are weak. They look so weak. But anyways, on to the next topic, okay? Because Kamala Harris claims that she hasn't changed her values, right? This is what she claims, right? And I think we should believe her at her word, okay? Because we know what her values are. Her values are far left progressive, okay? And she wants us to think that she's some new person, although her values haven't changed. Like, for example, when it comes to the border, this woman is an open borders extremist, right? That is her values, okay? She doesn't want criminals to be arrested for crossing the border. She wants to give them free healthcare and all types of other crazy stuff, right? This is what she wants to do. But apparently now we're supposed to believe that she's going to be tough on the border because, again, according to her, her values haven't changed.
Okay. Another issue, big one, is immigration. Mm-hmm. As Vice President, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries and
northern part of Central America.
The northern part of Central America that affects the southern border of the U.S. Mm-hmm. During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I, and our administration, worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border. And because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill. A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the Border Patrol endorsed the bill. And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock, and 1,500 more agents would help them. That bill would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl. Ask any community in America that has been devastated by fentanyl what passing that bill would have done to address their concern and a pain that they've experienced.
So you would push that legislation again. I just want to ask about...
Not only push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
Just one other question about something that you said in 2019 when you first ran. There was a debate. You raised your hand when asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally, and there should be consequence. And let's be clear, in this race, I'm the only person who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations who traffic in guns, drugs, and human beings. I'm the only person in this race who actually served a border state as Attorney General to enforce our laws, and I would enforce our laws as president going forward. I recognize the problem.
Generally speaking.
Yeah, so once again, that is Kamala, my values haven't changed Harris, okay? Even though clearly she's flip-flopping, right? Clearly something has changed, okay? The politics have changed, right? That's actually what have changed here. But I believe her, right? I believe her word. Her values haven't changed. I believe that Kamala Harris is a far-left communist, right? I believe that she thinks that we should have open borders and we should give free health care to illegals, okay? My biggest problem with Kamala Harris and that border question is, once again, Dana Bash trying to help her out, not really pressing her on the fact that she's blaming Trump for why she waited 3.5 years to try to do something about the border. Which also, by the way, what I have a problem with is the fact that everybody ignores the fact that in 2023, the Republicans passed the Secure the Border Act, right? Why is it that Dana Bash and mainstream liberal media treat the so-called bipartisan border bill as if it was the only bill that could secure the border, even though that bill was not going to secure the border? Why is it that Dana Bash did not follow up and say, okay, well, Republicans passed the Secure the Border Act in 2023. That was your opportunity to do something about it. Why didn't you push Senate Democrats to actually put that bill on the floor for a vote in order to do something about the crisis? What was wrong with that bill? Or she could have asked, well, why is it that Joe Biden repealed all of Trump's executive orders that helped to secure the border, right? Why did you do that? Okay, why did you do all these things? Okay, again, those would have been real questions that should have been asked if Dana Bash was a real journalist, but she's not. She's a propagandist. And again, this is why I'm more pissed off with Dana Bash than I am Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, because Kamala Harris and Tim Walz was sitting there like two sad puppies, right? That's what they look like. Okay, they look weak and fragile. They look frail, okay? They look like if Dana Bash asked one hard question, they would melt down, okay, instantly. But Dana Bash didn't do that. She didn't do that. And it's a damn shame. It really is. This was a disgrace, okay? This was disgraceful. Everybody involved. You talk about an interview. I think the interview maybe was 40 minutes, right? But we only have 18 minutes of the footage. I'm not entirely sure. But again, what is this, right? I mean, what we got was edited, and the edited stuff was terrible. Imagine what was said in the unedited clips, right? Imagine what was said. CNN should be demanded, for the sake of journalism, to release the whole thing unscripted. Release the whole thing, right? I want to see the whole thing, because I'm watching the edited stuff and I'm like, wow, this is terrible. Imagine what they said in the clips that they decided not to show. Imagine what she said. It was probably a train wreck, absolute train wreck. But again, this shows you exactly why they don't want to sit down and do interviews. It's because even in the best environment, right, home field advantage, softball propagandists interviewing them, they still crumble. They still crumble under basic questioning. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.